This is the Brian Noe Show.
Oh, look at this guy.
On NBC Sports Northwest, 620 Rip City Radio.
All right, very pleased to welcome in Tony Dungy, NFL analyst for NBC Sports and Football Night in America, joining us here on the Brian Noe Show. And I'll tell you what, Coach, I could literally talk to you until Super Bowl Sunday. We're just trading your old school stories with the Colts and first playoff games. It's amazing, man. You're like an encyclopedia. It astounds me how well you remember the details of these games.
Oh, you do. I can remember back, Brian, actually the Super Bowl 13 and what happened leading up to that, and playing the Cowboys and Roger Staubach and Tony Dorsett and Randy White. You know, that was 40-some years ago, but you remember it like it was yesterday.
What, by the way, I'm curious because this Super Bowl is a lot different than recent Super Bowls, but when you were getting ready for, say, the Super Bowl against the Bears and the weeks leading up to that game compared to Super Bowl 13, how would you compare, like, the buildup to both of those games?
This is actually a lot more like 13. 13, I was a player, second-year player with the Steelers. We were playing the Cowboys in Miami. We kind of flew down on Thursday. You knew it was a big game, but there wasn't a lot of hype and there wasn't a lot of hoopla. You played the game and, you know, hey, that was it. But then when I went back as head coach in Super Bowl 41, I knew it had gotten a lot bigger and I knew things were different. So what I did before that game is I called a lot of my buddies who had been to Super Bowls. I called Andy Reid. I talked to Bill Cowher, Mike Holmgren. Hey, what's this like? And they all told me, you have to let your players enjoy the moment. There's so much preparation, so much that goes on, so much nostalgia. Let them enjoy it, but don't get wrapped up too early in the week. As I say, when I was a player, we went down on Thursday. Then they started bringing you down on Sunday or Monday and being there the whole week. So I told our players in Super Bowl 41, we're going to start Wednesday morning like we usually do. So you guys have Monday and Tuesday to do what you want. I don't want to know. Edgerrin James was from Miami. He took them somewhere. I don't know where they went. I said, we will have no curfew. Just, I don't want to have the police calling me, but short of that, you can do whatever you want. And they did. And we had fun and they enjoyed it. I remember going to the NFL experience with my family on Friday night. It was kind of what the family wanted to do. And people looking around at me and saying, how can you be out here? Aren't you the coach of the Colts? And you should be getting ready for the game. But it was so much hype and it was so different that's what I learned. You had to just kind of enjoy it and relax and not take it too seriously early in the week.
If someone had told you, let's say around Super Bowl 13, like, hey, coach, just to let you know, like years from now, it's going to be absolutely massive. It's going to be the spectacle that it is. Would you have ever believed that?
I wouldn't have believed it. Mr. Rooney, our owner, though, he predicted it. In 1978, all the players got 20 tickets each. They were $30 a piece. And as a second-year player I think I was making $22,000. I was like, gosh, $600. How am I going to pay for these tickets? Who am I going to tell they have to stay home? And I can't bring my whole family and everything. But Mr. Rooney said at the time, he said, the NFL is crazy. These tickets should be $1,000 a piece. And people would pay for it. And we were like, no way. Our regular season tickets were $9.15 in Three Rivers Stadium. No way people would pay $1,000. Well, we get back to Super Bowl 41, and the tickets are $1,500 a piece. And I remember thinking, gosh, Mr. Rooney was right. He was way ahead of his time.
Wow, that's amazing. Tony Dungy joins us here from NBC Sports on the Brian Noe Show. You know, Coach, I was just talking about Terry Stotts. He's the Blazers head coach in our backyard here. Yeah. And there are a lot of people that are questioning, like, hey, why don't you play this guy more? Why don't you play this guy less? Like, why don't you use this defensive philosophy? On and on and on, which you know well as a coach. And I'm just curious, can you talk about the patience it takes when you basically have thousands and thousands of volunteer coaches that are telling you what you should be doing?
It goes with the territory. And I would just tell Coach Stotts something that Chuck Noll, my first mentor and my first boss, told me when I was just breaking in the business. He said, you have to have your convictions. You have to do what you believe is right. And stubbornness is a virtue if you're right. it's only a flaw if you're wrong, and you have to know the difference. And you'll always have people that say, you can't do it this way. You should do it that way. You're going to have the second guessers. I can remember being a young defensive coordinator with the Vikings. And when you played in Green Bay, you had to walk up to the press box through the stands. And I can remember coming down after games and Green Bay fans just, hey, coach, you got a minute? Tell me, are we ever going to win with this young quarterback? He's so wild. He throws so many interceptions. I don't think we'll ever win with him. It was Brett Favre. And I had to tell the fans, relax. I promise you're going to win some games with him. This guy is tough to defend. But, it's crazy. Everybody wants to see instant success. Everybody wants instant solutions. I'm perplexed by this whole Jared Goff trade. And, Jared Goff, the Rams loved him. They did all their scouting. They trade up in the draft to get him. He's playing as a young quarterback. He takes them to the playoffs. He takes them to a Super Bowl. And then 2 years later, he's not very good. We've got to trade him. We've got to get Matthew Stafford. Hey, I understand you want to improve your team, but Jared Goff did a lot of good things. And sometimes we just don't have the patience. We don't build. I look at Ryan Tannehill, and, gosh, he's in Miami, and, he's not what we're looking for. And somebody with a little more patience in Tennessee, they just wait, and he blossoms. So, I can imagine Coach Stotts is getting a lot of, this guy should play, this guy's no good, why are we playing this guy? The coaches, a lot of times, if they're patient, it shows, and they get good results.
How about a guy from the player standpoint? How about a guy like Deshawn Watson who wants out of Houston? What do you think about that situation?
That can happen. In my sense, I've known Deshawn Watson for a little while. I actually did the chapel service for Clemson his senior year. The national championship game was in Tampa, my hometown. Coach Sweeney asked me to come and do the chapel. So I met Deshawn when he was a senior in college. No one has said a bad word about him at Clemson. He goes to Houston, and he's a model of what you're looking for in your number one draft choice. He gives his first game check to the cafeteria workers who were displaced after Hurricane Harvey. He's done community work there. He's just been the face of that organization. And something happened. I don't know what, but something happened where his trust with that organization is not there. And so now he says he doesn't want to play and he wants to be traded. I promise you it was something major. Knowing him, it wasn't just a minor deal. Hey, I didn't get to play or something happened. So I have a little sympathy there. Mm-hmm. And hopefully they can mend fences and get back on track. But knowing Deshaun Watson the way I do, this is not about money. This is not about getting your feelings hurt. This is about a matter of principle. And sometimes that can happen. I've been with organizations where I felt like they weren't shooting straight with me, and it leaves a bad taste in your mouth.
I hear you, Coach. I'm curious if you were a part of that Texans organization, just from you, not knowing all the ins and outs. If you have a player who says, I want out of here, I want to be traded, what would you do if you were the head coach there?
First thing you have to do, come in and see me. Or if you don't want to come in the building, where are we going to meet? I'll meet you anywhere in the country. You tell me where, and we've got to discuss it. You've got to tell me why, tell me what we can do to get the fences mended and get you feeling well. It's all about communication. It could be something small. It could be something hurtful. In Deshaun's case, it's not about contract or money or who you took me out of the lineup or something, but we've got to find out. And that comes down to communication. I'm sure that's what David Culley is going to try to do when he gets there and gets on board. When I came to the Tampa Bay Bucks in 1996, I called every veteran player we had and said, hey, come in and talk to me. I want to know why we haven't been winning. I want to know your thoughts on what we need to do to make things better. We had some guys who wanted to leave at that time, felt like we'd never win. Some of those guys I could talk out of it. Some guys didn't. But that was my first order of business, to really talk to the guys and try to get on the same page.
He's Tony Dungy, NFL analyst for NBC Sports and Football Night in America, joining us here on the Brian Noe Show. Before we get to the game, Coach, I wanted to pick your brain about the last Super Bowl that Tampa was in. They won the game against the Raiders, and I'm just curious. you were there as the head coach for 6 years. The very first year you weren't there is the year they won the Super Bowl. So I'm sure that you had to feel conflicted where there are guys still on the roster that you love, that you battled with, but it's this first year that you're not there. How did you feel when they did win that ring?
It was definitely very bittersweet for me, Brian. I came in '96. We'd had 13 straight losing seasons. Some of these guys had never been on a winning team. And so you say, hey, we're going to build a championship unit. And you fight through some things and you go through some battles with those guys. And there was a lot of love there. I'm not there. They end up going to the Super Bowl. I was very happy for the city, very happy for the organization, happy for many of those players. But it was tough. It was tough for me not being there with them. I had a great feeling about that game. It was, a high-powered Raiders offense against a really great Buccaneers defense, and I thought the defense and the pass rush was going to take over and they would win it. And I remember going on a show like this and saying, I think the Bucs will win by a couple of touchdowns. And John Lynch called me and said, don't be giving the Raiders bulletin board material. And I said, no, John, you guys, you're going to handle this. Your defense is going to take care of business, and they did. Multiple interceptions, pick sixes. They were fantastic that day, and I loved watching them.
Did winning the Super Bowl with the Colts help, repair some of the hurt of not being there for the Super Bowl with Tampa, or was it just something that there's nothing that can replace that?
You get over it, and I'll say this: winning that Super Bowl in Indy was very sweet, and it did make the whole journey seem worthwhile. From being a young coach and getting in the business and moving around the country and working your way up the ladder and having disappointments, and then even after I got to Indianapolis, having those playoff disappointments where you lose the playoff game. We lost the AFC Championship game. You're a step away from the Super Bowl and not getting there. And those hurt, no question about it. But when we finally did win, it kind of felt like it was all worth it.
Now, you're there in Tampa. You're right there in the backyard of the Super Bowl. And, of course, you know the history of Tampa, where 12 straight seasons, no playoff appearances, and here comes Tom Brady, and now they're in the Super Bowl. What can you say about a 43-year-old man doing what he's done this season?
Well, he has been fantastic, and just for the mentality of the team. Bruce Arians told us we actually broadcast their first playoff game on NBC. And in the production meeting, Bruce Arians said, there are 3 games I can tell you we would have lost without Tom Brady. We would have lost these games last year when we fell behind. He just gave us the sense that we could come back. He's pushed those guys. He's given them confidence. Most people don't go up to Lambeau Field and win because they don't think they can. These Buccaneers believed that they could go up there and win. It was because of Tom. And he's done some things this year better than I saw him do when I was coaching against them in 2006 and 2007.
What are some of those things that you've seen him improve on?
Movement in the pocket, getting away from the rush, throwing on the run. Those things were not necessarily strengths of his, and he has gotten better at them. And it's hard to say that at 43 he's a better scrambler and a movement guy in the pocket than he was at 31, but it's true.
You look at Mahomes, and the guy is sensational, and it might sound like a ridiculous question, but I don't think it is. We know that Mahomes moves way better than Brady does, but Mahomes is missing his 2 starting offensive tackles. Eric Fisher is gone. Mitchell Schwartz is gone. Do you have more concerns about the pass rush getting to Mahomes than the pass rush getting to Brady?
Oh, absolutely. The Tampa offensive line has been special. They've protected well. They realize they've got a 43-year-old quarterback, and they've kind of taken it personally, and they've done a great job. And we have to go back to Kansas City and realize, hey, Laurent Duvernay-Tardif, before the season started, their best offensive lineman opts out, so their starting guard is not there from day one. Then they lose their left tackle. Then they lose their right tackle, and it's just so. This last loss of Eric Fisher really caused 3 different things to happen. The backup right tackle, who is a backup himself, now has to go to left tackle. The backup right guard, who replaced Duvernay-Tardif, he goes to right tackle. And then Stefan Wisniewski comes in at right guard. So that's actually 4 positions now that aren't as good as they were when the season started. And, that's going to be a problem. Tampa Bay has a great defensive front. It's going to cause havoc, but Mahomes is the best in the business at throwing the ball quickly, at getting away from trouble. So we'll see if Tampa can get to him. It'll be a long day, but I think his forte is scrambling around and neutralizing pass rush.
We might not see the Chiefs offense turn into, say, like the Steelers offense with a bunch of short, quick passes, but do you think we're going to get a lot more than we're used to with the Chiefs?
I don't know how they're going to do it. Andy Reid is just, he's special. He and Eric Bieniemy will dial up some different things, and I don't know if it's going to be play action, if it's going to be chipping. They don't want to chip too much with their tight end because obviously Travis Kelce is one of their biggest threats in the game. So you don't want to keep him in. But they'll come up with something to slow down those outside pass rushers. And then part of it, too, is just trusting Mahomes to get away from the rush. If you only rush 4 guys, there's always a running lane, no matter how quick you get there. If he can see it, he can step into one of those lanes. And that's where he's made so many big plays. So some of slowing the rush down is Mahomes. And those defensive linemen said, I can't just tee off. Yes, I can beat my man, but if I beat my man and get out of my lane, that's when he's most dangerous. So he has a great effect on slowing rushers down himself.
What does your gut tell you about who's going to win the game?
It's all pass rush. And I'll tell you, Brian, I watched the first game very closely. And the first game could have been 45-10 for Tampa. But for Kansas City, it was on the way to being 24-0, and Tampa got a sack fumble, and that kind of stemmed the tide a little bit. But in the last 3 quarters, Tampa outplayed them. They had some things going. Tom Brady threw 2 interceptions that if he doesn't throw, they may have won the game. So it's one of those games that can go either way, depending on the rush and the pressure and interceptions. And a play can be so close. It can be 6 inches from a sack that ends up a touchdown pass. That's how explosive both of these quarterbacks and both of these receiving cores are. So I think it's going to hinge on who gets the most pressure.
Yeah, I agree with you. I totally do. I think that, turnovers is obviously the especially with Tampa being opportunistic. You always put that at the top of the list. But I do. Yeah. I think pass rush, like the Chiefs got to Josh Allen 27 of 57 dropbacks. Yeah. That's insane. So if they put heat on Brady like that, we've seen his numbers decline when they get in his face. So I agree with you. I don't think there's a bigger factor outside of turnovers than pass rush. That's the biggest key of the game.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, Coach. Always appreciate you popping on, man. Good talking ball with you. I love the background, too. The back for the radio audience, and God bless all you great people. You can't see it, but got all kinds of memorabilia back there from the coaching days. Love it.
Appreciate it, Brian. Always good to be with you.
All right. Enjoy the Super Bowl, Coach. We'll see you, bud.
All right. Thanks. See you.
Thank you. There he is, Tony Dungy, NFL analyst for NBC Sports and Football Night in America. Great stuff.